Good evening and welcome to INFocus. I'm Phil D'Amico, sitting in for Eric Marsh, who has the night off. And thanks so much to Eric and all the staff here at WCTV for the opportunity to host tonight. Tonight's a very special night. We welcome our guests from Earlham College, so we'll be catching up with them. As a matter of fact, many of you know Earlham was established in 1847, and now we're going to welcome its 18th president, who's Alan Price. We also welcome Avis Stewart with Earlham. Gentlemen, it's great to have you. By the way, I don't think he was there for all 18. I think just a couple of them, right? I mean, we talked a little bit off the air how long he's been there. It's so good. I was going to say welcome to the community, but really welcome back. You were a student there, correct?
Yes, I was.
And
proud member of the class of '88.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, another guy that's younger than me. But so what was that like then? And maybe give us an idea of, now that you've come back, what's it look like today?
Well, it's amazing. And by the way, it's great to be on the show with you, Phil.
It's great to have you.
And thank you for sending me these historic notes so that I can appreciate that I step into a continuum historically.
It's great,
so that's wonderful. And I think that anybody who graduated in the 70s and the 60s, the 80s like myself, or the 90s, we would all say that there are certain themes that just remain the same. There's a certain campus culture. There's that Quaker ethos that we all learn and benefit from. The buildings are a little different. There are some more modern buildings on campus, but the feel is very much the same.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, Avis. Mission vision has pretty much stayed the same, but you've had a lot of growth, correct?
True. We have had a lot of growth, and you look at the buildings that are now on campus compared to the 60s and 70s, obviously with the new Center for Visual and Performing Arts, the new Center for Science and Technology, the Landrum Bowling Center, a baseball stadium on campus. I could keep going, Phil, but that's enough for right now. And hopefully people will come out to campus and enjoy some of those buildings.
I mean, it's a beautiful campus. One of the first things I did when I came here last November was tour the campus, and it's fabulous. Some of the facilities, you got a wonderful product to sell. But you left, right? Then went to law school. You went. You were around. Was that guy named Barack Obama? And,
Some guy.
Yeah. They became the president and the first lady. So, but you were there and had that experience. That had to be really interesting for you.
Oh, it was, and in part the faculty of Earlham pushed me in that direction. It wasn't the direction I thought I was initially going to pursue. And they said, no, we think you should go to law school and you should go to Harvard, and we're going to write your recommendation. And off I went, and I did.
That's fantastic.
I did get to meet Barack Obama then. I was just following one class behind him, and loved that experience. But Earlham fully prepared me for that.
And you were also, is it National Guard?
Army National Guard.
Yeah.
I did that slightly before and all through my Earlham career, serving in the Richmond unit, which was at the time a mechanized infantry unit. And I just got to say, my whole time here, it was not just the campus.
Right.
It was engaging with the whole Richmond community, in part through the National Guard.
And I think this gets in, does not get into a lot of what Earlham is about, which is the service learning and the commitment to serve your community. And I think, and I'll get your thoughts on this as well, Avis, but that has been a mission vision, has it not, of Earlham?
Oh, for a long time.
Right.
People work so hard to make the planet a better place. And whether they come from around the world or they come from here in Indiana, we engage in this service learning. And Richmond has been a perfect partner to work with, because if you want to learn to make the world a better place, Richmond welcomes your help.
I mean, it's been one of those, that's been a driven mission, basically, right? To get out, serve your community.
I think ever since before my time at Earlham, it was obviously there that students were out in the community volunteering their time, doing different things in the Richmond, Wayne County community. Actually, when I look at Alan's time at Earlham, he had a really interesting view from a standpoint of being in the National Guard and being on campus. And so we had students who, would do certain things like that were, I would say, unique, but also the kinds of things that helped them to grow as people. And Alan was not only an outstanding student at Earlham, but obviously his involvement in the Richmond community was important to him and remains that way today.
Well, you're in luck. I'm not going to pull your transcripts, by the way, so you're good.
Well, if I could just do a quick shout out to Maya Looney, who is a current Earlham student, also serves in the National Guard.
That's fantastic.
Just received notice that she may be mobilized to go down and help in Houston. It's extraordinary.
That's
so we have all
fantastic,
kinds of great youngsters on our campus.
Well, I was going to ask you, so Students are encouraged to express their views, correct?
Absolutely.
They're encouraged, and they are engaged. I think Avis kind of talked about their knowledge of social issues, so they are very much in tune with
Yes.
what the communities are like. Maybe give us an overview of that.
Well, the design from the beginning has always been to bring very diverse viewpoints, have that peaceful collision of ideas and ideals, whether it be liberal, conservative, rich, poor, whatever you want to use to describe that diversity. And you have to create a space where people can learn to respect each other and yet iron out very difficult problems respecting those differences.
Yeah, and you know, my daughter is a graduate of IU in Bloomington, constantly looking at social issues there. So
Right.
I think across college campuses today, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well, I think students are much more, I guess, educated on
They are.
social issues. So I think,
They are.
to Avis's point, balancing that with the education component is probably maybe a challenge, but also an opportunity.
Oh, it's a tremendous opportunity. And our faculty are up for it every day. They are the catalyst for some of the most incredible and deep conversations, very messy conversations. And for a kid who's coming from Richmond or Dayton to our campus, and it's a big transition to college life, what I say to them is, yes, but you're also the ambassador for what it means to be in America for the kid coming from the Ukraine or Bangladesh, or they're coming a much longer way. And this is where they're going to get their experience of how to change the world.
And I think it's amazing. We have seen over the years issues resurfacing today that we did see very strong in the 60s and 70s. Students are much more educated maybe, and maybe their approach is a little different today. Maybe comment on that. Have you seen a change?
There's a change, and I think it's our responsibility on college campuses to help them understand how to foster change, but to do it in a very respectful way. As Alan mentioned, sometimes they lose track of that in how to do it, but I think that's what college campuses are about, and that's what makes us better as a society. I mean, quite honestly, they push us to be better. Otherwise, we would stay in the same place where we are all the time.
Absolutely. And you had an administrative role in the Peace Corps, so you
That's
probably saw a lot of this firsthand, that service, that servitude, basically. How did that experience change maybe your approach as you came back to Earlham?
Well, serving in the Obama administration, so many Earlhamites go on to serve in the Peace Corps. So to arrive at Peace Corps and see a culture that was already very familiar to me, we tend to think that all federal service, all agencies look the same. They're very different. They have different cultures between agencies. So I was proud to serve at Peace Corps, which felt very much like an Earlham culture, and I think strengthened my ability to serve here because many college presidents have lamented my Board of Trustees is difficult. I love my Board of Trustees, and when you come out of federal service and you realize your Board of Trustees is sort of Congress, you can always think, you know, your Board of Trustees could always be more complicated.
Sure, and I love my Board of Trustees. You're sitting next to one, by the way, so I have to get that in there. I want to get your thought. How did the job come about? How did your interest peak for this job? I know Earlham obviously was a school and a campus that you truly loved. How did you decide you wanted to come back and be president?
Well, I've always loved the college, always been very engaged, and even right after graduation was active in alumni council, and you know, got my law degree and got busy and spent a lot of my life as a management consultant, which made it difficult to engage with the campus directly because I was traveling so much. But then more recently, I was nominated and voted on to the Board of Trustees. And so I got about that much lead notice that the 17th president was going to retire. And I said to my wife, now that would be a fun job. And knowing that the Obama administration would end on January 21st, I threw my hat in the ring and always figured, well, you're going to have a lot of traditional academic folks and then you'll have me. So I have a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, no, it's great. Avis, I want to get your thoughts. As you look at Earlham now, where do you think the college fits as it relates to maybe in the community, maybe into economic development?
You know, I know on the second half of the segment, I know you're going to talk to Gene Hambrick a little bit more, and Gene will get into that in even more detail. But I think college campuses, not just Earlham, but I think Earlham, IU East, Ivy Tech, Purdue University of Technology, I think all of these schools in you look at a community Richmond's size, and you think they have this kind of knowledge, and if somehow we can get all of these minds to work together, they can really make a difference. Because these are the people who obviously they are the ones who think of creative ways to manage change in our society. And you know, Earlham, the mind that goes to Earlham is different than the mind that goes to IU East. It's different than the mind of Ivy Tech or Purdue campus. But at the same time, all of them together make for such a strong, I think, a strong, youthful vibrance in the Richmond community that hopefully we can take advantage of it. And I know Gene is working on it, so I won't steal his thunder for the second half of the show,
we'll get him in there.
But he'll tell you a little bit more about it in
We'll
a second.
put him on the hot seat just like we are you guys. It's interesting. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and they listed all these cities up there, Iowa City, Manhattan, Kansas, Ann Arbor, all the, you know where I'm going with this. So the moderator said, what do all these cities have in common? Well, of course, they're all college towns, right?
Right.
But they're all places that people want to live. So they were talking about the importance of the engagement of colleges and universities on communities and how that can really transform a region. Do you see Earlham being a transformation driver?
I hope so.
Yeah.
You know, if you've been to our campus, and you have, you will note that all the buildings sort of face inward and hold this campus tight. I think as we look at a future Earlham, we need to think, how do we open ourselves more to our engagement in the Richmond community and Richmond's engagement in our community?
Yeah, that's a great point. So from the colleges are economic development drivers today, right? And I know that's you and I, the very first time I met you, you talked about that, and I said, I have no idea what this guy's like, but I love him. I love him already. But I know that's near and dear to your heart as well, using colleges to get out and help build communities.
And we know so many people do it individually, whether they're out serving on boards or doing other service projects. But I think that there's an opportunity coordinating with the other colleges and universities in the area and with business to jointly figure out how do we craft a way that a roadmap towards an even more prosperous Richmond and larger county area.
You know, and it's interesting. That was a great point that Alan talked about, the inward and outward focus. When I was in South Bend, when I got there in 1999, you did not see Notre Dame engaging in the community. And really the community has since taken off, and it really has not been that long since it took off. But it started taking off when Notre Dame decided we're going to get outward here in the community. I think Earlham can have that same effect.
Yeah, and recently we've started to do more of that.
Absolutely.
And again, you'll see even more in the future, I think, with what we're doing with the EPIC program. But as you mentioned earlier, you had an intern this year from Earlham.
Absolutely.
We've had interns at the Cope Environmental Center, the Boys and Girls Club, even an intern at WCTV one year served out here. So our students are getting out there in the community. Our faculty are getting more involved in the community.
Absolutely.
And you're right, from an economic development driver. The other part about that is about every year 300 plus students come to the community, and from one standpoint, they have dollars to spend.
Right.
And they spend them here in Wayne County. And so it's good for the local businesses, and I think people have been much more welcoming to our students because the students are out there interacting with them through internships, through the Bonner program. We have 60 students now who are involved in the community, 15 in each cohort. So there are a lot of ways now that we're more intentionally involved, but I think Earlham has always wanted to be involved in the community.
Yeah, and what's interesting, he brought up the intern. She's everything I'm not, by the way. Straight A student, spoke 6 languages, just brilliant.
They're all like that.
They're all like that, correct. But she was South Korean, so I think I want to get your thoughts because it seems like there's a big international focus with Earlham. You guys have done an incredible job in attracting, retaining, and as Avis had pointed out, getting them into the community. But the international students, maybe talk about that.
Well, it's critical not only for our educational community to have that global perspective, but I think by bringing the whole world here to Richmond, that will matter to Richmond. And many of these folks will stay and lead in these communities and also help these communities when they go overseas. You know, if you want to go overseas and attract jobs here, well, who's going to go with you? Maybe somebody who's already been, maybe somebody who's from there. We have those folks.
Yeah, and by the way, most of them, if not all of them that I've talked to, love Earlham. So there is something there, the international flavor, and I don't know how you guys do it. How do you ingrain, how do you help those international students? I'll get your thoughts on this as well, Avis. How do you get them to ingrain with the other students on campus?
There's something about our intentional community.
Sure.
And really seeing that of God in each person, right? As
exactly.
in terms of the origin of the college, that's important. But I think we've crafted such norms and values that it makes it easier, no matter where you come from, to feel like you belong, you're welcome.
These are really bright students. So I mean, early on, you see that they're destined for success. How do you ingrain? I know you're active with students and.
I think there are a lot of different ways. I'm going to point to a couple of different things. One in Earlham history, during the time when there were Japanese internment camps, Earlham welcomed Japanese American students to the campus. And so I think that alone has always helped us whenever you're talking about Japan or nations that from Asia. Okay,
Sure.
They might look at us from that standpoint. The other thing is we're also involved with now with Amigos. So they reach out. Gene will talk about that
Sure,
again. He's
yeah.
involved with the Amigos program as well. But it's always also been a requirement at Earlham that you take a language when you come to college. And quite honestly, as citizens of the United States, we're rather spoiled because what we do is we speak English and we expect everybody else to
Right.
speak English,
Yep.
but we don't really want to learn about their culture or their language. At Earlham, it's always been a requirement.
Yeah, you're smiling. You want to comment on that? Or?
I enjoyed, when I was a student,
Sure.
not only going through Spanish, but taking intensive Japanese. I had actually deferred law school for a year
Really?
to live in Japan. Had I not done that, I would have been in Barack Obama's class at
Wow,
law school.
that's
But
amazing.
I enjoyed my Japan experience. I had to wait until after my National Guard service to do that.
Yeah, well, bring all the Italian students to me. I can talk.
Perfect.
So you're not official yet, right? Inauguration? Well, you
Inauguration
are,
is
but
coming.
inauguration's coming.
Yes,
So
we're
maybe give
excited
us an
about that.
overview. Yeah, give us an overview. What's it look like? Is the student body engaged? Can the community get engaged? How does this all look?
Students will be very engaged. We welcome the Richmond community.
Sure.
The week of inauguration, we'll run I think a full-page
Right.
ad in the PAL item, just so people understand. We welcome everyone, and it will be not only me speaking at 1:30 and lots of the regalia and all the pomp and circumstance, but we're going to have a great singing group called Naturally 7 perform. We're going to have fireworks at night. It's going to be a big event.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know you're hard at work and involved in a lot of this. How important is that transition to have a new president on campus and to really, I guess, celebrate maybe the future of Earlham?
It's extremely important, and I think what Alan brings to this that we haven't seen in years is he is the Earlham story. And so whenever we're
great
meeting
point.
with alums, whenever he's out in the community, engaging with community, when he's talking about it from a perspective that it's who he is. I mean, he talks about it in that way. He has a love for the campus. I mean, he stopped me this morning as the very first thing he said is, "I love this job." And I thought, wow, I know all the headaches that come with it.
Well, we have to talk to him in 4 years, right? I mean, that's
The before and after
before
photo.
and after photo, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But you have really hit the ground running coming back. I was really impressed, with you early on that you got out into the community. Your wife got out into the community.
Yes.
You did your daily walk at Earlham, and
Yes.
you guys engage. It just seems like you have a devotion and passion for Earlham College, which really shows.
Well, and I appreciate Avis mentioning these things. I hate talking about me, but I love talking about my college.
Sure, yeah.
And I love Richmond. I think it's great, whether it's walking my campus daily,
Right.
either in the center of campus or in the backwoods, whether it's going over to Square Donuts or going to the Shakespeare Festival or just going to the movies. Right? I love the restaurants. I
That's
love the
fantastic,
people.
yeah.
All of Richmond has been so welcoming to me
A little
and our
different than
family.
D.C., right?
Oh, yes. Oh,
No
yes.
traffic, which is good.
Don't even get me started there.
So how do you get? I guess, how is Erlin viewed when you're out nationally and even internationally? I want to get your thoughts as well, Avis, because I know I can't go anywhere in the state without somebody mentioning Avis. So how is it Erlin perceived nationally?
It's a gem of a college. This is what people keep telling me everywhere I go. And I think there's somewhat like a mystery, like how do you do that there?
Right.
Because it's the kind of thing that you might expect in a large city. We have it right here.
That's great.
And we intentionally have it on a small scale so that you can't just have all the Bosnian students hang out together. Right. No, they have to mix with everybody else on this small scale.
Right. And by the way, we encourage our viewers, there's going to be plenty of ways across the screen to look at. If you have questions for either Alan Price or Avis Stewart, we welcome you to check on the screen and reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Avis, real quick, perceptions of Earlham, I know, as you travel.
Well, there's two different things. I think Alan covered that some, but I also think that what Earlham understands is that it's really important to be involved locally. And if you look around, you'll see Earlham alums in key positions right here in Richmond and Wayne County. And that's really important to the college because it starts here and then it just expands from here out to the state and then throughout the United States and then abroad. So Earlham, for this little small place, wherever I go, and if I'm wearing an Earlham shirt,
right,
somebody always stops me and says, Earlham College, I had so-and-so
right,
who, and how it's impacted their lives.
That's great. Well, before we take a break, and we're going to bring in another valued member of your staff, Gene Hambrick, I do want to ask you, endowment. Very critical to colleges and universities today. A lot of times it's difficult to grow that during these times. How do you guys go about, I mean, endowment's huge if you want to take care of and do some of the great things that you want to do. Endowment's important. How do you grow that?
Well, you mentioned before, Earlham graduates love Earlham College.
Right.
If that didn't happen, we wouldn't have an endowment.
Sure.
So I think all of them realize the only way they can ever pay it forward is, and make sure it's around for another 150
right,
years, is to continue to give to that endowment.
Is that a focus area for? I know every president's going to tell you that, but is that an area that you look at and say that's an area of opportunity for Earlham College right now?
It is. We are in the early phases of another capital campaign.
Great.
And I'm excited to go on the road and tell our story and grow that endowment because it's not cheap, and students need all the financial aid help they can get, and we provide so much of that aid.
And I do want to talk to you a little bit about that, because I think this is important. Student debt is a huge issue across the country. My kids, I was fortunate enough. I have the debt, not them, but still, how
Good
do
job,
we?
Papa.
Yeah, how do we manage that?
Yes.
That's a big issue.
We quite intentionally make sure that our graduates have much lower debt levels than would be the national average, for example, and we want to make sure that they are aggressively paying them back and able to when they graduate. The last thing we want for our graduates is to not be able to live their service mission in their life because this is lingering over them for a long time.
Yeah, and we need to help find jobs, right, for a lot of these individuals.
We do, and we really have a focus on how we're doing that at Earlham now that I think Gene and Alan will talk even more about in the second half of this, that helps them to discern what they want to do in life that will make a difference.
That's great. Can you guys stick around for a bit?
Absolutely.
We'll have Gene Hambrick come back. Great. We'll come back with Alan Price and Avis Stewart. We'll also be joined by Gene Hambrick, also from Earlham College. Stay with us as we come back and have our communication with Earlham College.
Hi, Phil Quinn. Join us for another edition of Access to the Arts, where we talk with Monica Koschlein of the Richmond Symphony Orchestra and John Cook from Richmond Civic Hall in this beautiful facility, Richmond's Civic Hall.
Really excited to welcome the orchestra back to stage in just a little over 5 weeks. It's unbelievable, and get rolling again.
It's a really impressive venue, that's for sure.
It's another edition of Access to the Arts, Thursdays at 9 o'clock on WETV Channel 20.
Hi, I'm Caleb Kellogg, voice of the IU East Red Wolves, and I'm inviting you to join me on Friday nights for Inside IU East Sports. Each week, we'll get to meet students, coaches, and others who impact the growing IU East athletics program. Watch Inside IUE Sports Friday nights at 8:30 on Wayne County's Education Access Station, WETV Channel 20.
Hi, I'm Sherry Harlan, Community Outreach Coordinator at Read Health and Program Host for Read Beside You. Join us for our next episode where I'll be speaking with Gina Harvey, Wellness Specialist with Read Health, and we'll discuss the new readhealthier.org portal coming in August. Join us on Channel 20 WETV Thursday at 8 o'clock.
Welcome back to our discussion with President Alan Price, and now we've added Gene Hambrick. Gene, great to have you, sir.
Thank you for
having me. A lot of
me.
respect. Heck of a tennis player, by the way. The guy's in great shape. I mean, he could kill both of us. I think you and I could be a doubles team, and he'd still be able to take us. You know, it does remind me though. Before I get into the question with Gene, athletics. You swam. We had Avis who played basketball. We got a tennis player here.
Yes.
How important is athletics to a college like Earlham?
Oh, it can be incredibly important for individual students.
Sure.
Not everybody does it, but for those who do, it's extraordinary. It's its own community within a community, and as I like to say, if we're going to play, let's play to win.
Right. And does it help? Does it help the student attraction?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because many students, they don't want to play their last soccer game in high school. They want to come and continue. Whatever the sport is, they want an opportunity to compete and express themselves on that canvas. And it's just a healthy thing.
Yeah, and I played baseball at West Virginia University. It just gets into it teaches you things that outside the classroom and gives you an escape. And you have those guys. I still communicate with a good friend of mine now in West Virginia. So, Gene, we talked a little bit in the first segment about where we see colleges going from an economic development standpoint. I know you're so heavy into entrepreneurship.
Right.
I gave the example, there were a number of colleges that were looked at as places to live, in large part because of research and development, and in large part because of student engagement and new entrepreneurial activities. How important do you, because I know that's what you do every day, how important do you think that is to a community?
So you ask a good question, because today's generation, Generation Z, is actively involved with entrepreneurship.
Right.
And so one of the things we've been developing over the last 2 to 3 years at Earlham is a program for entrepreneurship and innovation. And the students that come to it are interdisciplinary. So, for example, one of my students is a neuroscience major, but wants to set up her own lab and clinic. That's not a doctor.
Right.
That's somebody who understands entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
And so the things that we're doing at Earlham today are trying to help her on her 10-year mindset mission.
You know, I think it's interesting, and Gene just touched on it. Kids today, they want to own their businesses, right? Or they want to be an integral part of some form of a business coming right out of college.
Right.
Such a critical component to what Gene's doing, and I'm glad you guys are doing this. I do see this as a future. I don't know if you do or not.
Oh, it's absolutely a future. And Gene and others give people not only an opportunity to put together a sound business plan, but to prototype what they want to sell, or to partner with the Center of Innovation here with Enrichment, help them go get capital, whatever the next phase is. If they want to hit the ground running as soon as they graduate, we help them do that.
Yeah, we talked a lot in the first segment about service learning, how important that is at Earlham, and how the students are out in the communities. You're taking it to another level. They're in the communities creating business activity,
and,
correct?
And we call it a little bit of social entrepreneurship.
Right.
And so one of the things we talk about is creative capitalism. So you can be an entrepreneur and focus on profit, or you can be an entrepreneur who focuses on people, plan, and profit.
Right.
And at Earlham, we have a charge in our mission statement to train morally sensitive leaders. And so that combination of letting them do their passion, engage their passion, is one way we can do it through a program through entrepreneurship and innovation.
Yeah, and it's great. You have a program called EPIC.
Epic.
correct? Can you give us an overview of what that is?
A little bit of an overview.
Sure.
It's a lot of moving pieces, but the
Right.
simple part is EPIC is a term that talks about our signature program for the 21st century, especially for Generation Z. It's called the Erlin Plan for Intergroup Collaboration. And so that's a program that builds on our foundation of liberal arts and also, as I heard earlier, Quaker-based kind of faith-based system, but takes it to the 21st century student so that they take their theory to practice and their passions, ideas, and ideals to the real world. And so that's EPIC in a nutshell, but it's cross-disciplinary, and it seems to be working. It's
Big community focus as well,
huge
correct?
community focus, huge service focus,
Yeah.
and at the same time, again, it goes back to what's the student's tenure mindset. And we help through EPIC bridge that gap so that they can actually do those things in the classroom, in the community, and then hopefully after they graduate have a mindset to continue on, either in grad school or in social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He talked about liberal arts. Wall Street Journal did an article on liberal arts degrees now have a renowned and renewed focus and
Hooray.
emphasis. Yeah, what's interesting, though, they talked about the tech companies now are hiring liberal arts students because they know how to communicate, they know how to collaborate.
Exactly.
They call them fuzzies rather than techies. So that was the term for them.
Right.
But there is kind of a renewed spirit about a liberal arts degree.
I'm glad it's being appreciated again.
Yeah.
To only know your discipline,
Sure.
if you can't communicate with people from other disciplines,
Yeah.
really limits your leadership
And it's the
effectiveness.
creative thinking, right? The creative thinking
Right.
skills as well.
And how do you foster creativity broadly across many disciplines?
Yeah.
That's how these breakthroughs and innovations often happen.
Where do we see, I guess, entrepreneurship going from the college level? I think Earlham could be a real force in this, and I know you're really developing so many great programs and have a lot of respect for what you're doing. Where do we see that? What kind of impact can that have?
So impact-wise, this is a different question. Impact-wise, we're creating these little competitions, for example. The
Yeah.
Erlin Prize for Creative Capitalism, the Business Plan Competition for Social Entrepreneurship, And so what that is not just focused on Earlham, but it's also including places like Indiana University East,
Right.
Purdue Polytechnic, and Ivy Tech. I heard earlier in the session that some of the student profiles may be different, but they all are trying to solve big problems.
Right.
And so this Erlin Prize for Creative Capitalism brings those kinds of teams together to move forward for, in this case, Richmond. I can do a little peek under the tent.
Sure.
I'm not letting, hopefully, anything out of the bag, but I'm working with a group here in Richmond that is concerned about economic growth in Richmond and Wayne County. Through this Erlin Prize for Creative Capitalism, I'm hoping that they will give us a bonus award so that all the business plans that focus on this area, those teams would get a little bit of a bonus when they go through their Erlin Prize for Creative Capitalism.
Yeah.
That's where we see entrepreneurship going forward through Erlin.
That's fantastic. Tell them to call me at 3 a.m. because I'm up thinking about this stuff as well.
Right.
That's really,
Right.
it's a critical, when you look at, we just had a report card, the Indiana Chamber just did a report card where Indiana sits across the country and specifically where our region sits to other parts of the state of Indiana.
Right.
One of the concerns is the demigration, the people leaving the area.
Right.
Where can a college can really play a huge role in this, to Gene's point.
Right, to fight the brain drain, to fight
Absolutely.
the capital drain,
Yep.
all of that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think business startups.
Right.
There's several cities now across the country that have said their economic development strategies, we're not going outside the area to recruit businesses. We're going to look internally. We're going to look at our colleges and universities. We're going to create research and development from our professors. We're going to look at our students. What can they create? That is the model. That's where Earlham, I think, can be a force moving forward. I don't know if you envision that as well.
Oh, absolutely, we envision that. And so many have already started that way, and I think we need to put even more institutional focus on that.
And just to add one, because we are getting stewardship from the Lilly Endowment to, in
That's
fact, focus Earlham's attention in mitigating the brain drain. And so they've been very active in helping us.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about the collaboration with other universities. So I know there's a college collaborative, which I'm a part of. I think that's critical. I want to get your thoughts. I'll get your thoughts as well, but your thoughts. They're kind of sitting out on one part of town. You're kind of on another. It's a critical factor to engage you guys, I think.
It's a small town. We can bridge east to west here.
It's not D.C., right?
No.
It's not going to take you 45 minutes to go a mile. Right. So, yeah. But that is I think the college collaborative is a big area that
Yes.
that we need to focus on.
We need to spend more time in that.
Yeah.
And the mayor is also very engaged in
Yeah.
this conversation with us.
Absolutely.
And just to build
Sure.
on that one, I think you and Scott Zimmerman at the Innovation Center recently pulled together a cohort of folks
Yes.
from colleges, universities, government, and we took a little road trip.
Yeah, we did.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
And we went up to visit some other maker spaces so that
Absolutely.
we can start to create some ideas right here in Richmond and build that interest and that enthusiasm.
Yeah, we talked about endowment. I think so. Venture capital was another area that Indiana lacks. So a lot of the money is on the East Coast. It's on the coastlines basically, and
Sure.
it takes a time. I mean, even Mark Twain mentioned that if the end of the world is coming, he wanted to live in Cincinnati because it was going to take 5 years to catch up. So, so we're starting to see the importance of venture capital, and I
Right.
think universities again can play a role in that. But we need to develop more entrepreneurs. Is that a possibility? If
Oh, it is.
Okay.
It is to take some of the risk out, to
Right.
create more of a hub, and make it more attractive for capital to come here.
Yeah, and innovation centers are. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then to both of you guys' point, alumni are starting to understand, because we do have alumni who are venture capitalists, have seen what we're trying to do here at Earlham, and they're starting to contact us. How can we be a part of
That's right.
EPIC in this innovation?
That's a really interesting point. Before I go on to something else, Indiana University saw the value in this. They said, we're going to have our own economic development department, and we're going to go out and recruit some of those business owners that are IU grads,
Yes.
that have businesses in California, Texas, and wherever. We're going to try and recruit them back to Indiana. We're going to try and recruit them back closer to Bloomington, if not Indianapolis or wherever. Richmond
Yes.
is good. We're open for business here as well.
Sure.
But I think universities have figured out they can be an economic development driver, and they
Yes.
can be a factor in this by having their own kind of departments and reaching out at the business owners that are graduates.
We are looking to do things exactly like that. Yes, we are.
So I guess that gets into another point. So what is a price presidency going to focus on? What are some of the key areas you're looking at as it relates to Earlham? I know we talked a lot about what Gene's doing, and that's fantastic from one end. What are some of your hot buttons and key items that you're looking at?
Well, we're looking to grow on campus and grow in our impact in this community. So whereas traditionally we've floated around 1,200 students, I think over the next few years we're going to grow towards 1,400.
How do you do that? I mean, what's
Yeah.
the, I know that's a real loaded question, but what are some things that you can do to help grow that tuition?
Well, we're going to grow. We have three missions in terms of our enrollment, which is we are focused both in Indiana and locally, regionally, because we have a responsibility to educate people for right here. We have a national constituency, coast to coast, and so we want to educate leaders from around the nation. But we also have a global responsibility. And so in that part, I will be going over to Germany in November
Wow.
to try to expand our partnership with some of our partners and how we do
fantastic.
global recruiting. And we send our admissions counselors and our alumni around the world, and in many cases locally, trying to find talent and tell them about the special community that is here.
That's interesting. You talked about the alumni. I think they are your key salespeople, right?
Oh, they are our best ambassadors by far.
Right.
Yes.
And you touched on, I thought, an interesting point earlier about the millennials and the generation today. They want colleges to have cool stuff, right? They want it to be a cool place to go and those kind of things. The co-lab and things that you have. Maybe talk a little bit about some
Sure.
of the things you have there that students love, the interaction.
I overheard a little bit of the earlier conversation. When you come to Earlham's campus today, it's not the Earlham that I grew up in the
Right.
73 and you were in the 80s. It is a welcoming place. So CoLab is a very new destination space where we're inviting collaboration between students to students, students to faculty, and community partners, as you know.
Right.
And so that's a space where people now can sit down and just brainstorm, or actually clubs meet there, or they meet their faculty members. And that's a space that people feel very comfortable. It's a space that has writable boards. It has, we have video conferencing, so we could reach out to Germany if we needed to. So those are the kinds of spaces that students and faculty really are migrating to make things happen here at Earlham.
So you were class of
73.
So Avis is older or younger?
Okay, Avis is 74, but he looks older.
And you're in much better shape, right?
No, I'm not.
But I think Gene talked about an interesting point there, bringing the community to Earlham, and
Yes.
that's got to be something that I know you've gotten out, which is great.
Right.
getting more people to come in?
You know, some people have noticed that we have a natural sciences museum on Earlham's campus. We get between 10 and 12,000 visitors a year.
That's amazing.
Many of them busloads of school kids
Right.
coming through. We take that responsibility to the community seriously, but what you may not appreciate is all those tours are student-led. The museum is student curated. They do the science behind it. They do the business planning. They do the fundraising.
Wow.
It is a student-run enterprise. And if you want not only a liberal arts education, but you want to study museum sciences, Earlham is about the only place in the nation to do that.
I've toured the new science building, which is fantastic. So maybe talk a little bit about that. So you do have an emphasis on sciences, right? So
Yes,
a lot of people
absolutely.
may not think, you know, liberal arts, they don't equate the sciences there.
Very strong in the sciences.
Yeah, so where do you see the next wave of growth? So you had a good wave on the sciences side. Is that another area that you can still even grow larger? Where do you think the next growth is?
There's already pressing demand for more lab space,
Okay.
more student faculty research
Wow.
opportunities. It's just growing, growing, growing. And I think some of the historically strong areas like the humanities and the arts are also growing. So
Yeah, I want to get a little bit about, talk maybe about the education component. So talk a little
by
bit
the
about...
way, we have a Master's of Arts in Teaching that we offer. So when you talk about the education component, we educate a lot of the local and national teachers as
No,
well.
that's fantastic. So getting into Earlham, you have to be on a higher scale, certainly on the SAT, ACT scores, and
If you're worried, I know a guy.
I would be.
Give me a
yeah,
call.
I would be. My scores are not good, so let's throw me out of the equation. I'm sure Gene's got good, but
Yeah.
that is. So today is
It's competitive.
It is competitive, and then
Obviously.
students need remediation when
Sometimes.
they get there. A lot of
sometimes.
times. So
Well, I'll tell you, I went to a great science high school. I had never been asked to write a paper my entire high school career. When I showed up at Earlham, I could do the science. I had really struggled with the writing. It was through the great professors who taught me how to translate what was in here onto the page that I was able to start to succeed.
yeah, and what's interesting.
And we also have an academic enrichment, to your point,
Yeah.
center that helps with writing. They won't write your paper for you,
Right.
but they will help you in that. Plus, first generation, we have the LIFT program.
That's right.
And so those students may or may not have all of the benefits. I went to a Catholic military all-boy prep school. And so, you know, they may or may not have had all those benefits.
Sure.
But through the LIFT program, we teach them library skills, how to write, help them with their writing. And in fact, that's the first year program. So we have a number of enrichment programs, understanding that not everybody is coming from a privileged background.
I remember one guy asked me one time to help him write a paper, and I said, "I'm the last guy you want to have help you write a paper," so he went somewhere else. But what's interesting is you talked about the millennial generation. I think kids today love the project-based learning techniques, and I think that's a lot of what you get into. Have you seen kind of a change in the students in that area? They want hands-on stuff.
So hands-on, and at Earlham we believe in team-based, again,
Yes.
because of the diversity of thoughts and also geographies. So yeah, a lot of our students may come in as individual performers, but by the time they leave, they know how to work within groups. They know how to dissect, okay, we have norms, values, something's not working. They can actually step back and say, okay, what do we need to do to move forward? It's much like an athletic team.
Yeah.
And so the faculty is very trained on that as well. And so a lot of our work is team-based, project-based, hands-on experience, but you also will get the cerebral stuff.
Yeah, and I think those are the soft skills, right, that employers are looking for. But I do think there is, and I want to get your thoughts on this, both your thoughts. There seems to be a disconnect in some regard in that the business community says, I need better people, and educators are saying, we're giving you guys and gals with these types of skills, and we're catching what we think we are. How do we close that gap? I think there is a gap there.
Well, we try to talk to not only our alumni who are in business, but other businesses and say, what are you finding? When our graduates show up, what do they have? What do they lack? How do we close that gap? How can we better prepare them to be able to hit the ground right away as effective?
Yeah.
And then the other piece is internships. And so we have a very strong program over the last 2 to 3 years.
That's correct.
Of implanting internships, not just globally, but even at Richmond Baking Company, I heard earlier. And,
Oh, yeah,
you know, you
absolutely.
have an intern. So that's kind of how you also close the gap with real world experience, plus what they're bringing from the classroom.
Yeah. I want to get back to the liberal arts, though, real quick. Does the value of a liberal arts degree today carry, I guess, more importance than it did in the past? Do we see things changing in that area because of a lot of what we talked about?
So the value of a liberal arts education, you talked about it, and when you talk to employers,
Sure.
in my case,
Yeah,
because I'm
that's what I was
for-profit.
yeah.
So what are they looking for? They're looking for a lot of the soft skills. They can train them on the hard skills in many ways, but if they can't think, they can't do research, they can't articulate, they can't listen to another person's point of view so they can come up with a different point of view, that's the value of a liberal arts education. Now with Earlham and EPIC, we're actually taking that theory to practice, so through internships, co-curricular activities, they're actually getting that blend of as you say, the hard skills of application, but also, you know, how do you work with groups and teams?
You know, it's interesting. I did a show in South Bend on this very topic. We talked about the value of education, and we had people from all across generations. And I said, did you see the value of your 4-year degree? Do you see the relevancy when you got into the workforce? My year, which was class of '85, so I am older than you, sir. Not as old as this gentleman, but I did, you know, there were several courses that we took because we had to. I think that has changed a little bit. I mean, we still have to take core classes, but I think more people today see that college is preparing them for their next wave of life.
Yes.
I'm not sure my class did. I don't know what you thought.
Well, I think what people have started to realize is that through the course of a career, where your career can go in so many
Sure.
different directions and have so many fits and starts, that if you just focus on the first job out of college, you may find yourself very quickly feeling like, now I'm stuck.
Right.
I don't know how to make the leap to something where now I've figured out what I want to do. I think our graduates have found over the course of their career, they have more nimbly than many others been able to navigate the changes in technology, changes in consumer demand, changes in their own personal desires, so that they've had a very successful career in the long run without having felt like, oh, I only learned one technical thing and now I can't adapt.
One of the big issues in Indiana is the time it takes to attain a degree. So the average in Indiana is about 6 years for a 4-year degree. It's about 5 years for a 2-year degree, and then a lot of times the 2-year degrees, they got jobs and other stuff, so they're not, they're going to finish it when they finish it. However, 75% of the students polled in Indiana on this poll said that they changed their major at least once, which led to an extra year or two.
Yes.
Is it a problem? We talked about student debt, but is that an issue as we get into where students are going to be at today?
Well, I managed to change my major about 4 times, but still finish in my 4 years.
There you go. That's
so,
great. Yeah.
We encourage our students to explore, and we like them to graduate.
Right.
And I think it's important to support them to do that.
But both of my kids, were 5 years, and I said no more victory laps after that. 5 years was enough. But that is. Degree attainment is a big issue for the state of Indiana. We do lack across the country. We're about 44th in the nation, as the Indiana Chamber reported. How do we get more kids that finish their degrees, that we have more kids in our community that are actually graduates? And I think that's a challenge.
It's always a challenge. We try to support people academically. We try to make sure that they are engaged in the whole community, not just classes, so that they feel like they are part of Earlham and will want to graduate. In many cases, our faculty support students to get through all the personal hurdles. There are a lot of life things that can get in the way of graduating in 4 years. We do our best to help them get through all that.
So your thoughts on that? It's a big issue.
So same thing. One of the unique parts about Earlham, you may want to talk about your talk with the soccer students the other day when they were at your home.
Yes.
The Earlham faculty.
That got back to you, huh?
I was in that. I was in the faculty meeting.
Yeah.
So the faculty is very engaged at Earlham, and so students don't just come to us for academic advice. They come to me, for example, to talk about, hey, I'm having a problem, or how can you help me navigate this 4 to 5 years with a 10-year mindset? So the faculty at Earlham plays a key role on navigating, helping them get through in 4/5 years. But your story about the soccer team and the relevance of the
We had
faculty.
the men's soccer team over to the president's house the other night, and I asked the sophomores, juniors, and seniors to give the freshmen advice on how they should make the most out of this time. And they all gave very similar answers, which was, our faculty are incredible. take the time to get to know them, because the faculty are available to you all the time. They give themselves to the students.
Wow, that's amazing. And that is the benefit of a smaller school versus
It
a
is.
larger school. My son went to
You can't fall through the cracks and just be a
No,
number.
no.
People know you.
My son went to Bethel College, small Christian school in
Yes.
northern Indiana. I would often be out taking him out to dinner in the community. He'd run into a professor that would say, "You got a good kid here. I've gotten a chance to know him."
Yes.
That's really important. So we got about 7 minutes left. I do want to talk about the recruitment of professors. I think it's huge. How do you get individuals like you have sitting to your left here? How do you get individuals like that to Earlham, and what are
We
the...
grow them.
In my case, it was
That's true,
homegrown.
yeah. So how do you do that, though? Are they homegrown, or do you look for outside?
Many of them are homegrown,
Okay.
and when we look for a tremendous diversity, we need that injection from different schools as well, and different backgrounds, and globally, and particularly because we bring so many languages and technical areas, you can't grow it all yourself. So we do a lot of outreach, and our faculty do a lot of outreach, and our alumni do a lot of outreach, and we try to find folks who will be truly passionately engaged in this community.
It's a big selling point, right?
Huge selling
yeah.
point. And again, Earlham is unique in that respect where, you know, I'm very close to several. I don't even live in Richmond, Indiana, but I'm very close to a lot of the faculty here because of outside activities. You guys were talking about a little bit about the service. I do Amigos, and so through
Yeah,
Amigos, right, you get a lot of faculty who are giving back to the community. So they're fully immersed. The faculty that come here and are sign up for the mission are fully immersed in the college.
I think a lot of people look at Earlham, look at a faith element. So
Yes.
is there a faith-based? I know it's got the Quaker heritage certainly, but
It's
is there
a Quaker
faith?
heritage. And so many people come because of that, even though they're not Quaker, right? So some are Quaker, but whether you're Christian, Jewish, you know, certain denominations like Church of the Brethren, you know, all feel like there's something about a community that tries to live out its values and promote justice and promote peace. That's extraordinary, and they want to be a part of. So it does attract a certain kind of person.
Sure. Is there a faith feel? Is there a faith element on campus, I guess?
I like to refer back to an old term, which we call the Quaker ethos. But even for those who are atheists and come to campus, they still learn to listen
Right.
and appreciate the silence and the wisdom that it can bring.
Where do you see the campus going? And not necessarily with your new boss here, but in general, where do you see college campuses in a college like Earlham? Where do you see it heading?
So we have been around since 1847.
Right.
We have a pretty good endowment. So we feel very strongly with the strategic plan that we put in place. EPIC is one of the leading edges of that. Our college is on the way up. You talked about, you've walked around with your Earlham shirt on. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico at a Hampton Inn. This lady walked up to me and said, "Earlham College?" And I said, "Yeah." In Richmond, Indiana? "Yeah." I went to a couple of classes there. Now, she ended up going to IU East,
Okay.
but Earlham has that reputation.
Wow.
And from
Yes.
a marketing perspective, you can't pay for that.
Right.
That only says you're going to be bigger and stronger. So with the programs we've got in place, strategic plan, new president, I'm not buttering up to him. I'm retired, more or less, almost.
He's working harder than anyone.
You're really buttering up,
You know,
yeah.
the college is on the way to 1,400.
Yeah.
So about 4.5 minutes left. You part of your strategic plan. Tell me, or if you can, share a little bit
sure.
about what that is. What's that look like?
Well, I mentioned the growth, and we
Sure.
want to do the capital campaign, and we want to do some technology initiatives on campus. I think, like a lot of small liberal arts colleges, we're a little late to the game around going paperless, and so we historically have done all our admissions and things like that involving a lot of paper.
Sure.
We're trying to improve the operations, but I think bigger than that, we're trying to continue the tradition of curricular innovation. We're looking at more 3-2 programs and 3-1 programs so that people have the opportunity to get a master's on top of the undergraduate faster.
That's fantastic.
And so we're looking at things like that.
That's very prominent, by the way, going around all across the country. And Alan talked, a little bit about the technology part. That's where I think a lot of what you're doing with students can help, right?
That's correct. And so we have a wonderful faculty member, Charlie Peck, who has classes in computer science in the hundreds. because some students are, you don't think about Earlham being a liberal arts school, being strengthened.
Very strong in
but
computer
we're
science.
strong in computer science.
Right.
And so our students can go on to Carnegie Mellon,
Right.
or, you know, all the schools.
A lot of engineering.
Engineering. So we even have a 3-2 program.
That's right.
So again, we're on that cutting edge of pushing liberal arts for the 21st century.
Biggest challenges you saw coming into the position, you know, certainly what did you see coming in that you thought, man, I really got to do this right away? Obviously the technology and those kind of things, but when you took the job, what were some of the things on the periphery that you looked at and said, we really got to look at that?
Let me put it this way.
Sure.
Biggest danger for a first-time college president who is a graduate is you try to take you might be perceived as taking the college back to the 80s to what you know and recognize. And I didn't want to do that. But I did want to slow down, build relationships on campus, contribute to this building of a community before we do anything different. That is the core that I think we need to come back to before we start innovating on top of that community.
So when you came in, did you look and say, we've got to totally transform, or do you think there's some, you know, things were already in place and you can take advantage of a gradual step?
You know, some people refer to it as the product.
Sure.
The product isn't broken.
Right.
So don't try and scramble those eggs, right? we are known A+ for the strength of our education. Are there things we can do better? On the administrative side, absolutely. But support the faculty to continue to support the students. That works.
Do you think it's possible for faculty to do R&D and spin off into new business startups? And I'll get your thoughts on that as well. Do you think it's positioned to do?
Not only would I support any student to follow their imagination and creativity, I would support any faculty member to do this.
But is it possible at
Sure, it's
Earlham?
possible.
Okay.
They do it all the time.
Okay. And a lot of times professors have been doing and are doing research and development because that's part of their job,
That's
right?
correct.
That's what they need to do.
That's correct.
Can we put that into a tangible result with new business?
So there are a couple of ways we can do
Sure.
that. One, the Erlin Prize for Creative Capitalism. That's a collaborative effort with faculty in many cases. I think you know about Team Magic Bus,
Yep.
who won the $1 Million Hope Prize. That was
Yeah.
a collaboration. So yes, we can build that in. Now we have to get a little bit smarter about how we do intellectual property and policies, but the faculty is on board with helping students, you know, realize their passions.
1 minute left. Your perceptions, and feel free to get as brutal as you want on me, perceptions of the community. What do you think, what do we need to do? How do we need to engage Earlham, and how can we benefit from this?
I think even more than when I was a student,
Sure.
Richmond loves Earlham and Earlham loves Richmond. I think we need each other. We're good partners for each other. If I want to develop somebody to be a leader who can lead around the world, this is the perfect partner to
Right.
teach them that skill. They can build that muscle working in expanding a food pantry. Working in a literacy program. They can test the water to make sure they're safe. There's so many things that they can do, individual and team projects and student faculty research in the Richmond community. Many of them will stay here because of it, but some will go around the world and be more effective leaders elsewhere based on what they learned here.
Oh, it's fantastic to have both of you doing what you're doing. It's great to have you on the program today, just to
I'm
catch up
excited.
with you.
Anytime.
You've done some great things, and I'm such a huge fan of yours, and Earlham, I talk about it all the time. And thank God your inauguration's not on a Notre Dame weekend, so it's great. Thank you, gentlemen.
I wish
All
I
the
could say
best
we
to you.
planned that.
That's all for this week. Thank you for watching InFocus. We invite you to watch us. Thanks again. Take care.
Watch Wayne County Connection on WGTV Channel 11 Tuesdays at 6. I'm Michael Swigert, your host. Join me this month as I talk with Sheriff Jeff Kappa from the Wayne County Sheriff's Department about the challenges and the accomplishments of Wayne County Sheriff's Department and making Wayne County a great place to work, live, and play. Watch Wayne County Connection Tuesdays at 6 on Channel 11.
You are watching Whitewater Government Television, Channel 11.